Well, it's worth noting that over the course of her reign, Queen Elizabeth visited Jamaica 6 times, and one of the people who was often involved with her visits to the island during his time as a career diplomat in the country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs is the Jamaican High Commissioner to Nigeria, Esmond Reid, and he joins me now in the studio, along with Nigeria's former permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva, Ambassador Humphrey Orjiakor, and also Arise Special Correspondent Dan Warren, who's in the UK. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us. So let me come to you first, Esmond Reid, the Jamaican High Commissioner to Nigeria. What then is your reaction to the passing of Queen Elizabeth II as the world stands in salute to her?
Well, I must say that I am deeply saddened at her passing, because she has been such a feature of my own life and of the lives of so many of us across the world. 70 years on the throne is quite significant, and so for me it has come, as a tremendous sense of loss. But at the same time, I am truly thankful that I have had the opportunity to witness her tremendous sense of dedication and service to her people and to humanity in general.
Well, thank you for that opening salvo, as they say. Let me come to you, Ambassador Humphrey Orjiakor. She's been talked about as an icon of pride, not only to the British people, but to the Commonwealth. What's your reaction to that?
Thank you, Charles, for bringing me in. This Queen, Elizabeth II, has been with us, some of us before we were born, and she died a few days ago. There is a lesson she lives. Even to the last hour, she was working. She just received the incoming Prime Minister and was on her feet. And a couple of days later, she was gone. That says something about love of country, about dedication to duty, about courage. She definitely was an exceptional woman, and the world certainly will miss her.
And I think there are a lot of lessons that we can all learn from her dedication and selflessness when it comes to duty. And let me go straight away to the United Kingdom, where Arise Special Correspondent Dan Warren is standing by. Good to see you, Dan. And what did you make of that first address by King Charles? I mean, what clear messages did you draw from it?
Well, let's face it. The new king has spent his entire life bringing up to this point for this speech, and I think he's certainly got the tone of the nation right. I think his message is that the family appreciate all of the condolence messages, and basically as far as the monarchy is concerned, it will continue to grow, it will be strong, it will continue all of the aspects that Queen Elizabeth reigned over us and brought to the monarchy, but it will also evolve, and clearly he wants to put his own stamp on it without causing too much confusion or too much unsettlement right now. I think his tone, as I said, certainly hit the right note of how the nation and the Commonwealth are feeling.
Well, absolutely. And of course, the nation starting to respond to that. I understand that at that remembrance service at St. Paul's Cathedral, the first rendition of God Save the King, was delivered. And that obviously makes it a very poignant moment. And let me come to you, High Commissioner Reid. Queen Elizabeth's last visit to Jamaica, from what I understand, was in 2002, by which point I understand political parties in Jamaica had already decided that at some point in the future, the monarch should no longer be head of state. But despite this, I mean, the crowds still turned out, didn't they? And presumably, Jamaica is in mourning today.
Yes, indeed. Jamaica is in mourning today because the Queen was very much loved by the people from all walks of life. Indeed, there have been conversations and about, ensuring a final departure from the constitutional monarchy. And of course, that conversation continues. But the Queen, as a person and as a figure of stability, of service, of dedication, and certainly she was, of course, very committed to Jamaica's development, and she very actively, participated in the life of the country, and so she was really very much loved by Jamaicans at home and abroad, and very, very highly respected, and crowds indeed turned out to see her on every visit that she made to the country.
Nevertheless, staying with you, High Commissioner Reid, you had the average person, as you said, reacting as normal, flag waving, hand waving to the Queen whenever she turned up, but you always had those with the placards, didn't you? I mean, the Rastafarians are those who insist that Jamaica needs to be free of the monarchy.
Well, as in any democratic society, which Jamaica is, there will be divergent views on situations, on various political and constitutional arrangements, and different interest groups will always have perspectives. So of course, Jamaica, as you would know, is certainly one of those countries which prides freedom of speech and expression. And so, yes, different groups would have been canvassing for us to finally pursue a totally independent path without the constitutional monarchy in place. And as I said, those conversations have been in place for some time and have taken on a little bit more speed, let's say, in recent times. But in all of this, there is still a strong sense of support for the Queen as an individual and as someone who represented, stability and commitment to humanity and to selfless duty.
I'm inclined to agree with you there, and just staying with the sort of the concept of the Commonwealth, Ambassador Orjiakor, beyond serving, the Queen made it her duty to create as well, didn't she? I mean, the Commonwealth was a very small organization when she ascended the throne, and it was over her reign that the British Empire dissolved and that she gathered the empire voluntarily into this new body known as the Commonwealth and helped shape it and bind it together. And that would have been presumably a great source of pride for her.
Charles, what I do, I always try to draw lessons from the lives of these great people. And Queen Elizabeth, late may her soul rest in peace, was certainly the icon of what you call great people of the world. Now, she was a lesson in leadership. There are those who do not believe that the Commonwealth served any purpose after some time, but they also agreed, basically to a man, that the Queen was a lesson for all Commonwealth heads of states and government to learn in leadership. Her apparent humility in the midst of the pomp and pageantry of royalty, her dedication to duty, under the sun, under the rain, under whatever conditions, she was there, and she was solid, she was strong, she was courageous. Indeed, there's a wishful thinking in some parts, including in my part of this country, that probably if the Queen had more powers than she actually had under the British Constitution, if she had more authority, more influence, she would have been able to prevent some of the egregious wars and conflicts that took place in Commonwealth countries, Nigeria included. And It really is a lesson to learn that a lady who came to power at a relatively young age and stayed in power in an antagonistic environment where Britain was the lord and master of so many countries. You know, relative to its size, you wondered how that was even possible, but it was possible. And here was this lady straddling all over it. And everyone, leaders, followers, citizens across the Commonwealth, for her person. I listened to the High Commissioner talking about her person. Everyone seemed to respect Queen Elizabeth II. Everyone seemed to at least take her views, honor her. But the least everyone could do was accept her as a genuine leader. To my mind, I think that's why the Commonwealth has survived this long. Let us look forward to what King Charles III is going to bring on the table, whether the Commonwealth will continue to wax strong as it did all through those years of Queen Elizabeth's reign.
Well, let me stay with you, Ambassador Orjiakor, because I mean, there are, of course, those who feel that the Commonwealth signified another form of neo-colonialism and who suggest that it can't be divorced from the British Empire. So as we now look to the future, as you mentioned, under King Charles III, will there be people and countries who might be looking at the Commonwealth rather differently and who might pose a challenge to him?
To be frank, I wouldn't have any crystal ball to read into what King Charles is going to do. He'll probably understand that his mother's model was the way to go. He'll probably also understand that to copy her, to replicate what she did, so he has to bring his own style on board. But the essence of her reign should not be lost. If it's lost, it will be the loss of the Commonwealth. But I can tell you, I have spoken to a few Australian friends, and they think that maybe this is the end of this thing they've been struggling for. If you go to Canada, the same kind of stories. But the United States was once a British colony, and today it is a Republican country, just like Nigeria became a Republican independent country before the military came and changed things. Sometimes when you look at the Queen of England, what she did through her period, you begin to ask yourself, was it even right for us to jettison the Westminster parliamentary system for what we have now? Probably that's one of the lessons that the Queen exuded. That separation between the executive office and the head of state, and the harmony that went with it. You know, it's something unique and totally interesting. I think we ought to revisit.
Yes, I mean, that is something that is often discussed in Nigeria as part of the idea or the concept of restructuring. But of course, that's a discussion possibly for another day. Let me come to you in the UK, Dan Warren. Thank you for your patience. And of course, in Britain, there are lots of people paying tribute, going personally to Buckingham Palace, to Windsor, to Balmoral Castle, because this is a queen who's been part of people's lives for the past 70 years or so. I mean, take us through the official mourning period, which I understand began at midnight. I mean, what happens now?
Well, yeah, that's right, Charles. Basically, we are in official mourning. Official royal mourning will actually end 7 days after the Queen's funeral. Now, the date hasn't been confirmed, but many sources are indicating that it is likely, or the most possible date at the moment, but yet to be unconfirmed, is the 19th of September. Tomorrow we will see King Charles be proclaimed officially. The Accession Council will meet tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, And for the first time in its history, this procedure is going to be televised. When Queen Elizabeth was coronated, it was the first time a nation and a world got to see a coronation. Now we're seeing the new monarch led us into their world a little bit more to see this process. Also tomorrow, Parliament is sitting once again, the 6th time since I think about 1939, where Parliament will sit on a Saturday for more lawmakers to pay tribute to the Queen. And senior ministers will sign or swear an oath to King Charles tomorrow afternoon about 2 o'clock. Meanwhile, the Queen's body will be taken to Holyrood House, her official residence in Edinburgh. And then later on to St Giles's Cathedral, where there will be a chance for people in Scotland to visit the coffin whilst it's lying in state. There'll also be a service before her body will be transported back by apparently her favourite form of transport, which was the royal train into London, and then preparations will begin for the procedures and the very many pomp and ceremonial events until the funeral, which we, as I say, we believe but unconfirmed, will be the 19th of September.
And staying with you, Dan, looking ahead over the next 10 days or so, a fairly carefully planned operation of both remembrance and mourning for the Queen, but also the new king moving around the nation, I understand, reflecting and channeling the mourning of many people, but also getting himself out and about so that there is continuity of the crown across the UK.
Absolutely, and I think we saw that earlier on when King Charles arrived at Buckingham Palace for the first time as the monarch. A lot of media outlets expected the royal cars to go straight through into Buckingham Palace, but instead, as you can see, he got out and to physically shake hands. He was amongst all of the well-wishers, and I have to say, I mean, even people like me, that sometimes I get described that I've got a heart of stone, it's very difficult not to get choked up to actually see people from all walks of life, all different backgrounds, as we can see now, meeting with one purpose in common, to pay tribute to the former monarch and to wish the new monarch good luck, and everybody getting along. I think the thing is, the UK is going through such a very tumultuous time at the moment, politically, and with Brexit and everything like that going on top of the energy crisis. Just for everybody to get along under one common purpose. This was exactly what Queen Elizabeth was. She was a unifier, and Prince Charles certainly carrying that mantle. And we know that he will be attending services in all of the nations of the UK prior to the official funeral, which will take place in Westminster Abbey. Basically, to, as you say, to show continuity. The key for what Queen Elizabeth wanted was to make sure that the crown continued without delay. And as you said, very well thought out preparations, Operation London Bridge, as they call it, also Operation Unicorn, as the case is, because the Queen died in Scotland. So you've got two operations merging into one. And she was very, very much hands-on in the organisation of these arrangements, including the service that we saw earlier tonight. That was her idea. That was her wish. That it was a chance for the people basically to say goodbye and to welcome in two different eras.
Well, it's absolutely extraordinary when you describe it the way you have, and it gives one food for thought, thinking of the Queen actually planning for a time when she's no longer around. And High Commissioner Reid, what was she like in person? Because I mean, we're sort of talking about her in sort of fairly broad terms, but you met her yourself, and I've seen people who met her saying that you can't can't help but be struck by her dignity and grace and by her clarity of thought.
Yes, certainly. You know, many people who think of monarchs naturally think that they are removed from the rest of humanity. But I must say that in the times that I had the privilege of meeting her, she was indeed very warm, very gracious, and she certainly was interested in what people around her were saying and what, you know, their lives and how people were getting on, you know. So she indeed had a very strong interest in what her citizens and the people with whom she came into contact thought and felt, and she had her own views as well on issues of the day. And you know, she certainly exhibited a lot of wisdom and a sense of everything that was happening around her. So she indeed was, you know, part of the fabric of the people.
And Ambassador Orjiakor, there are of course two parts to this story, certainly for people in the UK, but also for people in the Commonwealth. There is the understandable sadness of many people feeling right now about this loss, and then there is the other conversation about the institution of the monarchy and the effect it's had on the lives of people across the world. I mean, where in your assessment does that conversation stand today?
In fact, I think that is the key, both for the United Kingdom and for the Commonwealth. You know, the Queen Elizabeth was simply a symbol of moral authority. She was the soft power of Great Britain in international geopolitics. I can recall as a young foreign service officer in the early 1980s and all of that, some people were beginning to describe the UK as the sick man of Europe. And the reason was similar to the circumstances Britain is facing right now, since after Brexit, the Ukraine war, energy cost, stuff like that. Those were the years of the strikes and things. The Queen was the stable study of what Britain represented. She stayed solid, strong, constant. She was the attraction of the rest of the world to the UK. And I think it was during her, still during her reign, that an English woman broke what would be called the glass ceiling. In fact, she didn't break it, she shattered it. That was Margaret Thatcher, and rebuilt the British establishment we now celebrating today, as the Queen has passed on and handed the baton to her son, King Charles. The hope, I've said this before, the hope is that King Charles will be as sensitive, as courageous, you know, as dedicated, and as compassionate as the High Commissioner has just said. You could see the Queen listening to what looked like a house help, listening to her attentively. And that was humanity at its best essence. That reality at the top of the world, having a discussion with somebody who was. That is what the world needs at this time, the sense of humanity which she exuded and exhibited throughout her reign. Yeah.
Now, let me go to you, Dan Warren, in the UK for the final word. We've just got over a minute left on the programme. I was discussing this with our international correspondent, Faith Orr, earlier, who was reporting from Buckingham Palace, and the new Prime Minister, who was just appointed by the late Queen on Tuesday, pictured entering Buckingham Palace for her first audience with the new king. And I mean, how, in your assessment, significant is that? A meeting between the monarch and the Prime Minister, each just hours into their new job?
Yeah, I think it's very significant. I mean, it's something this country's never seen before. On Monday, we had Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Queen Elizabeth was the monarch, and today in their new jobs, we've got Prime Minister Truss and King Charles. Very significant because, as you can imagine, both of them have been surrounded by so many advisors and press secretaries over the last 24 hours that actually this was time for both of them, in effect, to reflect on what the situation is, to build that chemistry and rapport and almost work out how they will go in the future, and also how they will handle the next couple of weeks or so. So very significant, and actually probably I would imagine one of the most important meetings both of them would have had in their lives.
Dan, I want to thank you very much indeed. Arise special correspondent Dan Warren joining us there from the United Kingdom. And of course, also, I want to thank you, Ambassador Humphrey Orjiakor, who was Nigeria's former permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva, and last but certainly not least, the Jamaican High Commissioner to Nigeria, Esmond Reid. Thank you very much indeed to all of you. And you're watching Arise Prime Time. Plenty more still ahead, including we enter the murky world of Nigerian hostage negotiation following the arrest of one of the more prominent self-appointed negotiators, Tuku Mamu. Stay with us.